に宿命のゴンが鳴り響く劇的体験画廊伝説
The future is now SNK.
Hello and welcome to Replay Retro. I'm Matt, and on this week's Retro Education, we're going to get up close and personal with a seriously desirable piece of hardware from SNK as we bask in the massive shadow of the Neo-Geo AES system. In the late 1980s, SNK had a few decent arcade hits with games such as Alpha Mission, and were looking to take their arcade business to the next level. They planned to corner the market by creating an advanced arcade system which would be able to carry more than one game at a time. These games would also be easily swappable, reducing both cost and floor space requirements for arcade owners, and thus massively improving the profitability by moving away from the very expensive older style of doing things where you replace an expensive game board or indeed replace the entire machine just to keep up with the latest games. The result of this research effort was the multi-video system, or MVS for short, a simple arcade cabinet with internal slots for up to 6 different games dependent on the model. These games were easy to change, just like cartridges in a home console, and the installed games could be browsed through via the player via buttons on the control panel before they insert any coins. Around this time, SNK also noticed that some of the most popular home console games were ports of arcade titles, but that many gamers often complained that the home experience was nowhere near the standard of the arcade version due to the limitations of the hardware. The company quickly realised that the cartridge-based MVS they had developed could very easily be made available as a console with the same high performance as users would get in the arcade, allowing the games to be identical in every way to their arcade counterparts. And that as a result of this, they knew that their home console could have significant advantages over offerings from Sega or Nintendo, and thus in 1990 the AES Advanced Entertainment System was born. Retailing at an astonishing $649.99 on release, the AES is second only to the 3DO in terms of price, and the games didn't help either, with prices starting at $200 and only going up from there. This meant that a game alone was more expensive than the whole Mega Drive console, making the AES a very niche system for the hardcore gamer and financially out of the reach of the masses. Even today, AES cartridges can hold incredible prices, with some being worth thousands on the rare occasion that they are found for sale in the wild. This extra cash would buy gamers what was technically a 24-bit system at the beginning of the 16-bit era, thanks to a 16-bit Motorola CPU running alongside an 8-bit coprocessor. These processors and several other advanced components meant the machine was capable of displaying a massive 4,096 simultaneous colours compared to the 256 available to the Super Nintendo and the comparatively puny 64 provided by the Sega Mega Drive, as well as giving it the ability to throw out more sprites than the SNES, Mega Drive and TurboGrafx combined, making the AES an insanely capable system. In '91, arcades went crazy, as Street Fighter II invited games to test their skills against each other in what is widely regarded as the greatest beat-em-up ever. This stimulated a massive surge in 2D beat-em-up games, and it was in this area that the AES excelled. Its arcade-style controllers, blistering speed and fantastic colour depth lent themselves perfectly to creating some fantastic franchises, including the Art of Fighting series, and it's little wonder that a massive amount of the system's game library is made up of such games. Again, the ease at which these games could be transferred from MVS to AES proved to be a massive strength and helped see good sales, but not even this could overcome that massive price tag, and the console was never truly a threat to its Nintendo and Sega rivals, barely even impacting on their market share. So let's take a look now at the console itself and a few of the games and see just what it is that makes this system so collectible. So as you can see, here we are with the system, controller and a game. And the first thing you're going to notice if you've seen any of my reviews before is that this thing is taking up most of the table. I can't get it in shot any better than this, it just won't fit in. Every aspect of the Neo Geo is enormous. This thing is truly huge. For size comparison, I have a normal Game Boy cartridge here. Right, let's just hold that up against the console. Okay, there you go, just about reaches the reset button there. In fact, forget that. I have a Game Boy here. Just hold the Game Boy up against it. Wow, that is one seriously big machine. Even the game box is bigger than the Game Boy. This is a big system, I can't emphasize that enough. Yeah, here is the console itself, anyway. You can see it's a very slim machine, very thin. It doesn't go up very much, but it's also very wide and it's very deep as well. On the top then here you have your big barn doors for putting the cartridge in. Reset button on top, your SNK and obviously your Neo-Geo logos and such there. On the front is your power switch, simple on-off slider. Your controller ports here. Headphone socket, including a volume slider for that headphone socket. Here is where you would put a memory card. A unique thing about the Neo Geo is memory cards, where if you were playing a game, let's say in this case, Mutation Nation, and you reached a certain stage and unlocked certain things, you could save those onto your memory card, and then you could take that memory card with you to the arcade and plug it into the MVS system and continue your game there, or use a character that you'd got from a set game against someone at the arcade, which was a really great feature. So it really did link the AES and the MVS system together brilliantly. On the sides you have absolutely nothing. On the back here you have the AV socket for going to your TV via a SCART lead. And you also have the DC in socket for the power supply. Underneath, again, not a lot, some vents, some nice rubber feet that really do prevent slipping actually, it's quite good for that. And your usual information that you would expect to find on the bottom of a console, including your serial number and etc. The controller then, as you can see, is almost as big as the system itself. I mean, I've got systems in my collection that are smaller than this, full-size normal systems that are smaller than this. It's a great arcade stick, it really is. I have a nice clicking action, you can hear that there, on the stick, and some really good light but solid press on the buttons, which is really great for your button mashing in your beat-em-ups, which is what this system excelled at so well. And your select and start buttons, as you would also expect to find on any home system controller. You get a decent bit of cord there, and you can see it ends in a unique plug, unique to Neo Geo systems. Controllers from the CD system and the AES system were compatible with one another, so you could link them along. And of course that just plugs straight into the front there, like that. It's a very smooth in motion. Then we get the games, which come in these massive cases with some really cool artwork on the front of some of these. This game was obviously Mutation Nation, as I showed you before. You can see on the bottom, this is a 54 meg cartridge. Later games were capable of holding much more information. The original max 33 mega that's written on the front of the system here was exceeded in a very short space of time. I believe the largest cartridge they did was an 867 meg cartridge, which was the 2001 version of Art of Fighting. I might be wrong on that, but I think I'm about right. On the back, of course, you get your screenshots and a little bit of information about the game. Then inside is the giant behemoth of a game itself, as well as obviously the instruction manual and everything else that you would expect to find. So that's the cartridge itself there. Massive great cartridge. Again, I've got systems smaller, smaller than this. The Game Gear is smaller than this, I think, really. This could be a handheld in itself if you just put a screen here. Be a really good handheld. The insides of these cartridges are pretty much the same, the chips etc., as the arcade cartridges would be. However, the way they connect is different, so that the cheaper MVS cartridges cannot be used on the AES without an adapter. You can buy adapters to make them work, and there are also consoleized versions of the MVS hardware available, which you could use the MVS cartridges straight on. But vice versa, the AES cartridges won't work on those systems. So again, it's all about the route of how you go about entering the world of Neo Geo gaming. And of course, the cartridge firmly locks into the top there, like a big tombstone sticking out of this black mound. And you're ready to play Mutation Nation. So, as the screen says, this is Mutation Nation. Once again, we're having to use a TV here because the console for some reason won't link. But considering I'm actually using a large TV here, I'm using a very large LCD Samsung TV, graphics are impressive and don't really look stretched or distorted to me. So that is a great thing that the Neo Geo has pulled off here. Let's take a look at the actual game itself. On your difficulty select, you've got this on most games. You can choose easy, normal, hard, and also MVS, so you can face the arcade version. We're going to go with normal here. You then get a little instructional video to tell you what all your moves are and such, so what happens when you press certain buttons together. And there you go, you can see all your little power-ups there so that you get an idea of how to play the game, which is great for people like me who don't want to read instruction books. So as you can see, this is a side-scrolling beat-em-up. See what this one does. That's a pretty cool move. So picking up these little powers on the floor, these little A, Bs and so on, changes your special power. So what have we just picked up now? Another cool move. And every time you pick up one of those crystal things, you pick up 3 of that move. There are only 2 buttons used, as you saw in the title screen area. But using those 2 buttons, you can actually make a variety of moves happen. And this is a great game. I'm not a big fan of side-scrolling beat-em-ups. I hate Streets of Rage. I know a lot of you are probably going to say something about that, but it's never been something I'm interested in. But this I really like. And considering again that the competition for this game was coming from the SNES and the Mega Drive, there is no competition. Look at the depth of colour. Look at the detail on the sprites. Look at his face here, all the angry expression you can see. It's brilliant. Never try to charge a special move when you're under attack. Next up then, Art of Fighting. So this is one of the fighting games from early in the system's life, and one of the fighting games that it would become famous for. The Art of Fighting series improved massively as it went on. This is the first one. And by the time we reach the 2001 cartridge, which as I said earlier is the largest Neo Geo AES cartridge, the graphics were absolutely stunning. That's one I do need to pick up at some point. But even now, in this early stage, it's far more detailed, and the colours, again, are far more deep than they are on any fighting game you'll see on another console, such as the SNES or the Mega Drive. The sprites are a lot bigger, there's a lot more going on them. Even the background, if you look at the background of the trees, there's a lot more shades of green available than there would be. for the SNES or the Genesis. And you can see that your characters once again would get beaten up. You can actually see wounds on their face and stuff like that as they get more beaten up. Which was something that a lot of arcade fighters didn't even do. You also have taunts, like that. But taunting has cost me my existence. You have no ability. Try again, is what someone might say to you if you are killed. Lastly then, we'll take a look at the Super Spy. Another early game, and a brilliant game at that. This is an absolutely brilliant game. It's kind of a pseudo 3D game. You're walking around a building, taking on various people to stop a terrorist plot. You've got weapons, and obviously also your fists. And well, let's just get into it. You'll see. It's a very good game. It's probably one of my favourite games that I have, but it's also very difficult. So you can see we move around like this, and the terrorists appear. I can't actually move forwards and backwards. I am on one plane, so it's not actually 3D. It's just pretending. I also have a knife available. You see the knife, you have to wait until they get very close in order to use the knife. Whereas if you use your pistol, you can just take them straight out. Your environments have a degree of destructibility to them, such as the glass there. You have to be quite careful with the ammo on the gun, it can run out very quickly. I love blowing stuff up. I really love blowing stuff up. Yeah. Don't mess with me. I'm the Super Spy. I'm also about to be dead. Forced to what, my friend? Build bombs! Good God. I will kill someone for you, but not this guy. It's easy to see the power of the AES and MVS hardware, but the price tag always prevented that home console from being as big a success as its arcade brother. In an attempt to combat this, cheaper CD-based versions were released, but still struggled to gain ground on the competition, as well as suffering from complaints about long loading times. Production of the AES hardware was officially terminated in 1996, however the success of the MVS system meant that games carried on being developed until 2004, with limited releases available for the AES as well, making it the longest supported video game console of all time, with a fantastic run of 14 years. Interestingly, the console's most famous franchise, Metal Slug, only started after the 1996 end of console production, making the cartridges quite rare in today's market, where they can command ridiculous prices. Impressively, the arcade hardware managed to survive both the bankruptcy of SNK and the arrival of 3D arcade gaming, before finally the company gave up due to increased levels of piracy as the ROM chips for the games became cheaper. Today, there are several ways to get into Neo-Geo gaming, but with the exception of emulation, however you choose to do it, you're in for an expensive time, so it's important you shop around and set yourself a strict budget. Once again, we're out of time, but don't forget you can keep in touch with us by following @ReplayRetro on Twitter, and as always, I'll be back next Sunday with more from ReplayRetro. Cash would buy gamers what was technically a 24-bit system at the beginning of the 16-bit era, thanks to bollocks, it's so f***ing far ahead. Massive